We have an unidentified flying object.
I'm Jack Oswald, and you're listening.
This is Hudson Hammond, and you're listening to...
I'm Richard C. Hoagland, and you're listening to...
I'm Art Bell, and you're listening to Dr. J Radio Live.
We have an unidentified flying object.
Oh, my bad. I don't know if you were talking to me or not.
Welcome back to another very special episode of Dr. J Radio Live. Before we get started with one of the craziest, most shocking, and damning abduction cases, I never really throw these phrases around as in my favorite cases. As you guys have all known, guys and gals, I've been doing this for a long time. This happens to be 9 years this month when I actually started interviewing people, and I've been paying attention to these topics at least 37 years. I've heard hundreds, probably in the thousands of cases of alien abductions, and this is absolutely the one that shocked me the most. And another thing too, let me say this to everybody, you will only hear this here. The only other place you've heard it in the past would have been when I interviewed him several years ago. So you are definitely in for a treat, because this isn't something you're going to see on History Channel. It's not a typical Travis Walton type of case. This is wholly original. So without further ado, and because it's sort of incognito, we're going to be calling him Ricky G. So with that being said, let me introduce back, it's been a long time, my dear friend, the one and only Mr. Ricky G. Mr. G, welcome back.
What's up, DJ? How you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm glad to have you back. It's been a long time in the making.
Yeah, over 5 years since I talked to you, I believe.
That's right.
On interview-wise.
Yeah, I think it's, 5 years since I talked to you last, and then even longer. I think it was about 6 years, 2015, the last time I had you on. Regardless, it's been all too long, and there's a lot new audience that, for the most part, haven't heard anything prior to what I did in 2018, since a lot of the audience joined in 2018, since I was gone for 2 years. So real quick, let me just say this to everybody so I could say this now and not have to repeat it during the show, and hopefully a couple people in the chat will repeat these messages throughout this interview. Please remember to subscribe if you are not subscribed. Also, share this video, hit the thumbs up. Those three things help my analytics push these videos up front to be suggested. Otherwise, they become buried in YouTube and no one hears them. If that's the case, then why the hell am I even here? Also, leave a comment. It doesn't even matter if it's a one-letter comment after the stream is over. That too aids in the analytics. And of course, super chats. Not only do you help support me and hopefully bring me back to monetization, but more importantly, keep this channel from becoming deplatformed. I'll say a few more things at the end, but now it's important that we get into the substance of this shocking interview. Now, Ricky, let's take you back. First of all, tell us the year that this incident that we're going to talk about happened.
The very first one's like early 88.
Okay. Now, this is the one where you woke up before your work. That's the one I wanted to talk to?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's bring people back to about 4 or 5 in the morning. You had a job that you had to get up literally before the sun came up every morning, right?
Right.
So what was different about this particular morning?
Well, I had to be up like about 4 or 5, so I really don't know the exact time it happened, but it had to be before that. So I don't know when it happened, but it was like sometime the night before. I usually went to bed like 8 o'clock because I had to wake up early and I wanted to make sure I got my sleep. So that's in between 8 in the morning and about 4:30, 5 o'clock.
What woke you up? I mean, was it your normal time that you would wake up? Is it an alarm clock?
No. Well, first of all, I didn't know I woke up. I didn't know anything that was going on. I live in apartments, and dogs woke me up, if you remember that part.
I do.
Dogs barking. It was dogs barking, and I thought they were in my apartment. But I wasn't in my apartment. I was actually walking down the street in my neighborhood, and dogs in the neighborhood were barking at me, and that's why I woke up. And like I said, I'd rather you just ask me questions about it instead of me telling the stories. So a lot of people think it's rehearsed and stuff.
Yeah,
And I don't know.
and it's not. And I'm here to vouch that it's not. If everybody's curious how I actually found Ricky, it was actually ironic. I had seen an interview, and he, because of his job, family, etc., and wants to remain anonymous, you were in, if I'm not mistaken, in shadow, and your voice was distorted. And then
Oh, yeah,
it
yeah.
stuck in my mind. And then I ran into, I was working with Yvonne Smith and Ciro. And then, sure enough, somebody knew you and put me in touch with you, and then the rest is history. So, folks, this is not rehearsed anything but. Okay, so dogs woke you up, which obviously you would not expect dogs to be barking, when everyone's asleep, because they should be asleep unless something's disturbing them. Now, at
Right,
what
and
point,
I thought they were in my apartment. And when I
that's how
woke up,
loud they were barking, right?
Yeah, and I woke up in the middle of the street. And I got to let you know that it took me like 10, 15 years to get this whole story because I remembered it in pieces throughout my life. And it came to me in backwards order. Like the first thing, then I remembered something in the middle, and then it just was in a weird little order.
Now,
So I ended up putting it together later.
So, and this is typical with UFO abduction cases, specifically because it's buried in your subconscious. Now,
Right.
so you woke up and you were in the middle of the street. Then what happened?
All I can do is control my eyeballs.
So
I
you
was
were
walking.
essentially a robot with vision.
I'm not going to say that, but yeah, I had no control. The only thing I could use is my eyeballs to see where I was going and what I was doing. I couldn't stop. I couldn't scream. I couldn't do anything.
Now,
So,
you were
go ahead.
taking to a park, if I'm not mistaken, right?
No, it's like in my neighborhood, I live in a city, but they had like a nature preserve where they don't build anything.
Mm-hmm.
They just leave it alone. And I went to this little bridge, and after the dog thing, I blacked out again. Then I woke up, and I was on one knee, and my other hands were on my other knee, like I was posing. And again, I was looking everywhere else but straight ahead. It was like I was a tripod. And I was looking all over, and then I finally looked straight, and it was like through trees, and it was a perfect little view I could see. And I saw what I thought was a shed with two guys standing by it, but it wasn't. It was like keep going or
Yeah. So tell me what you thought the two guys. What made you think they were human? First of all, well, then again, I would think that if you never experienced anything before that, you would not think they're anything but human.
Right.
So
and that's why I thought it was a shed too. I didn't think it was what it was. You know what I mean? So I just thought two guys were standing on the side of the shed that was open. But then I blacked out again. And then the next thing I remember I saw was like a black pearl-shaped ball, about as big as a shed that you would put like lawnmowers in and stuff.
And this was, in hindsight, the ship, right?
I guess you could call it that. It's what took me to where we went.
So what's the next memory you had?
Again, I just assumed that it was two guys, so I didn't really look at those guys. And I couldn't control myself, so I actually just walked in the ball. It was like a black pearl ball, and it was pretty small. So I went in there, and again, I went on my knees again, and then they came in after me.
Was there a door that opened up, a ramp that came out?
I don't remember a ramp, but I know it was a door, like a square door, and I just walked in it. You know, something I wouldn't have done if I could control myself, you know.
Someone made a comment here that it's not shocking. Well, hang by, folks. What's going to be shocking is what happens very soon as you start.
And that's why I really don't tell my story too much, because like I'll take it to my grave. I really don't care what people think. You know what I mean?
That
It's
is
not
another
shocking.
reason I like this. And just so everyone knows, I had to pull his teeth out literally to agree to do this. Even the first time,
Right.
he did not want to tell the story. And like when he said he wants to take it to the grave, he means that. He would rather never say this again. And this is exactly why you're not seeing a picture
Yeah.
of him
And I
or
and
on
I had
camera.
a YouTube channel with over like about 500,000 views, and then I just ended up taking everything off. Everything is all my videos, original videos that you saw,
Hmm.
are on my Facebook.
And near the end, I'm going to have you plug that in, of course. Now,
Sure.
so how many beings were on board this ship?
Including me, 3.
Now, were they typical grays, 3.5 foot tall, or did they look anything
Yeah.
different?
I met 3 different species, and these ones were they were like up to my armpit.
Okay, so approximately 4.5 feet, I'm guessing.
Man, I'm only 5'4", so whatever my armpits are.
Okay, so possibly a 3.5 foot.
Yeah, they were small. They were really small, and I didn't look at them, but immediately I asked them where they were taking me.
And what was the answer that you got?
They told me to the back of the moon.
Okay, now here's another important part I want to tell everyone. When you were inside, still it was dark outside because this is pre-sunrise, right?
Right.
Was the inside of this black pearl illuminated?
No,
Now, were you able to see outside as if it had windows?
had no windows, but they told me where we were going, and I asked them why, and they said because at that time Earth couldn't monitor. That was the only space they couldn't monitor was behind the moon.
And that makes
So that's
sense if people know
because they-
scientifically.
and
Line of sight. We have to have satellites behind there to relay the information from behind there.
And that's how I found out the moon doesn't rotate. We never see the backside of the moon from where we're at.
And that too in itself is an entire anomaly that deserves its entire video just on that. But I'm glad you made that because a lot of people don't stop and think, well, hold on a second, why doesn't the moon rotate when every other moon in our solar system does, just like every planet does?
And they told me, because I asked them why are they taking me there, and they said because Earth can't monitor, they can't see, or radar or whatever the hell we use to, see. And I just, everything they told me, I just accepted because I was kind of out of it. So I just wanted my answers, and that's what they told me.
Did you see anything on the backside of the moon that would maybe like a base or something, or anything that would tell you that there was a reason that that's the place they operate aside from keeping us from prying eyes?
If we get to that part, you're skipping how I got there.
Okay, let's go back.
Right. So, again, I just go ahead and ask the next question.
Yeah, so let's talk. Okay, so you're inside with 3 other beings, and they tell you they're going to take you to the
Two
back.
other beings.
Two other beings. 3.
I was the third.
Yeah, you were the third. And they tell you they're going to take you to the backside of the moon. How long did it take to get there, and how did you get there?
They just took off. And the thing about it, I told you there's no windows, but when it moves, it becomes transparent.
That's
so I could
why
see
I
out,
was
so
asking that. Exactly.
So I could see out of it while it's flying or moving. But the way I explained it, it was like being in an elevator feeling, but going sideways. In elevators, we only go up and down. But it was like going sideways. And it wasn't like they took me there. It was, the feeling was, and the perspective that I saw was the moon came to us. We didn't really fly there. It was just weird. It's just, again, I can't explain things that really don't exist. And that's just, I could just tell you how it felt and how it looked.
There, someone here, Mortimer James. No, Terry Lovelace was the interview I did a couple hours ago. This is Ricky G. There's a question here. It's from Stephen Carne. It says, what was it like flying in the UFO? Was it like a plane ride or something else?
Well, we had no seatbelts. We didn't have nothing. That's why there was no. The feeling I got was like if you go on a plane, you kind of like jerk backwards.
Yeah, and
This was like the opposite. It was like maybe How do I explain it again? It's hard to explain.
Well, if it's you're jerking backwards because of the inertia and the propulsion pushing you forward, is there?
This one was pulling us from the front.
Wow. Okay, so this actually falls in line to things like Bob Lazar talked about, that the technology that the sport model, for instance, used, instead of having thrust behind a plane to push you forward, which is a reaction, push thrust in the back, the reaction is push you forward. Essentially, these operate conversely, where they put their propulsion system pointing forward, and that creates that distortion in gravity, and you essentially fall. So that would explain why you were sucked towards the moon or fell towards the moon.
It seemed like that, and it was to me it was like an elevator, but it was going sideways, and no one's ever really experienced a sideways elevator. I would think. I haven't. And again, it got transparent, and then it only took less than 10 seconds.
Wow, that's really fast for a 250,000 miles, or 250. I think it's 250,000 miles. Yeah, quarter of a million miles. There's another question here for you. This is Cashmore Turbo. How did you communicate with these star beings?
At this time, I wasn't communicating with. Oh, yes, I did. Yes, it was. I was using my mouth, but they didn't talk like that. It's what they call telepathy. I didn't figure it out. It took me a minute to understand that and how to figure it out.
When you received telepathic messages, was it in your own voice or someone else's voice?
There's no voices. It's literally like, this was really interesting to me. It's literally like, okay, say you're walking out the house and you forget to turn the light off or lock the door. You know that thought that comes in your mind? It's not a voice. It's just you, oh, I forgot to lock the door, or I forgot to feed my cat, or it was just like that. It goes in your brain like a thought.
Interesting. That's an interesting way to put it. I've never actually heard it described that way. Now, as you're approaching the moon in this ultra fast trip, 10 seconds, did you start to see anything on the surface of the backside of the moon?
No, I did see it. We kind of went on the side of it, and then we made like a J. We kind of went past it, and then turned back around and went in it, went to the back.
Did you land on the surface of the moon?
After we got there, I blacked out again.
Now, at what point did you wake up and have this liquid experience, which is the shocking part that I want everyone to hear?
That's still a few little chapters away.
Okay, so after you blacked out again and you're on the moon, when you woke back up, what did you experience? And the reason I'm asking is I'm wondering if when you blacked out, did something happen? Did they do something to you?
Yeah, every time I woke up, something woke me up. Like the dogs, me being on my knees, and then me walking in. And this time, now, I haven't told this story in a long time, so I don't know if I might be off a few times, like in the order-wise. So, but as far as I remember, the next thing was they were like holding my wrists, and they were walking me somewhere, and I'm terrified of frogs for some reason, and they felt like frogs to me, and I jerked away, and that's the first time I saw them.
Is this the point when, since you felt their skin, which reminded you of a frog, that you wanted to punch them, and they gave you an image in their head what would happen if you punched their head?
Yeah, first thing I did was ball my fists up.
Nice.
And I was going to punch them because I was scared, ridiculously scared, because they were not people. Let's see what happened. I remember looking at them, and I was going to punch them in the face, and they kind of let me, in my mind, do it and saw what would happen. And when I punched them, I like went through their whole head, and it was like punching a rotten melon or something. And I was so scared of how their skin felt, I sure the hell didn't want their insides on me, so I didn't punch them.
There's another question here for you. What were the beings wearing, if anything at all?
Okay.
Ricky?
I'm sorry, are you there?
Yeah, can you hear me? Uh-oh. Don't tell me we lost Ricky. Ricky, can you hear me?
I'm sorry, are you there? Yeah, I had another call.
Oh, no worries. There's a question here for you. What were the beings wearing, if anything at all?
Something dark. Again, I didn't. How do I explain this? People always assume you're going to just analyze them and look and stare and do it. At this time, as it's going on, I'm not interested in what they're wearing. Wasn't interested in a lot of that stuff. I was just frightened, and I know they had some kind of dark clothing on and like long sleeve. But again, I can't really start talking about that because I'd be lying. I didn't focus on that. I was just focused on how they looked and how they felt.
Did you experience any emotions from them, or were they just, like emotionless?
A couple of times, like I said, I met 3 different species. So these guys were really aggravated with me. That's why I think it was random, because they sure in the hell wouldn't have picked me because I wanted to kill them.
Yeah, it's good enough reason not to be picked.
Right, I would think. You would think. So they were really aggravated with me, and they walked away and left me in this dark-ass room. You know what I mean? So
now, can you describe the contents of this dark room?
Everything was kind of like round, like no corners. It wasn't like us at all. They had no pictures. They had no door frames. They didn't have nothing.
Did you see any other humans, or is that not yet?
Not at this time.
So, now you said each time something woke you up when you blacked out. Did you ever think that when you were unconscious that they may have injected something into you, or was any of
they do. It's mental stuff. It's like a mental Novocaine and stuff like that. They did everything with your brain.
I see. Okay. Now, next question is what happened after that? So you're obviously woke up again, and you felt their skin, which reminded you of a frog, which you hate, and you balled up your fist, and they showed you what would happen if you punched them, which would be head explode essentially. You didn't want the insides or their guts all over you. What was the next step?
Well, I was kind of looking for somewhere to go because they just left me. You know what I mean? And again, at this time, I didn't know I was on the moon because, I blacked out, and every time it was brand new. So they brought back this dude, this taller guy. And again, I got to say this, the way I controlled my fear was not looking at him. I would look on the ground because when I looked at him, I was terrified because, like, the most I ever looked at him was like a half a second. So when I didn't look at him, I was able to control myself. Like, I could defend myself because that's how they control you, with fear. But they couldn't control me because I wasn't looking at them.
Now,
but I knew they were there, like I was looking at their feet. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So what was the next memory?
They brought this. Oh, this is crazy. They walked in, and from my perspective, they thought I was going to get in some kind of trouble. And they brought this taller being, taller than me. I believe he had like brownish skin. I don't even know if it's skin or whatever. And he looked at them, and he looked at me and said, "This is the prophet." And I thought they thought that was my name. So I was just going with it. You know what I mean? I just said, "No, I'm not. I just went with it. I thought they had the wrong guy. But that's how the older guy introduced me to them, I guess.
The older of the beings?
The taller guy, yeah. So those 2 guys left. The 2 little ones left.
Did this taller one look any different, or did it just look like a taller version of the others?
No, he was a whole different species. He had 2 arms, 2 legs, and a head, but he was just different.
Lighter skin.
He was just as ugly.
Ooh, okay. Would you say that this was also a gray type species, or was it more a reptile, or like?
He was the leader. They're the leaders.
But
he was the leader of the project that I was involved in.
But was it
those guys? The grays are what I call the delivery guys. They just bring you to where you're going, and then they leave.
Did the leader, was it like a praying mantis type, or what would you say the
No,
classification was?
it was just an ugly human kind of thing. It was just, I didn't see any hair. Of course, it was dark. But it's weird, like when I look around and see, you ever see a miner's hat where they got a light on top?
Yes.
They look. That's kind of how I saw. Everywhere I look, I could see. You know what I mean? So,
There's
and then I go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say there's another question in here, and I'm going to add something to it since you kind of did answer it. It's from Sasquatch Agency. It reads, did the beings talk? If so, what did their voice sound like? And since you mentioned they spoke telepathically, did they ever make any audible noises at all?
No, nothing. It's a silent world.
Gotcha. Did anything on the ship ever make any noises, or was it everything was silent?
No, nothing that I remember. No beeping, no nothing like that.
Did the interactions with this ugly leader type ET, were they any different than with the delivery Greys?
He didn't scare me as much. He was cool. He would communicate with me. He explained what was going on. Because I asked him, why am I here? He said, we need to do some, I don't know if the word he said experiments or whatever, but he needed to check up on me. He was checking on things. And I agreed to it as long as he brought me back.
Well, that's another major thing, too. The fact that this being was explaining to you obviously shows that, A, he's the leader, and from what I've heard from other people, it's that the gray AI, glorified biorobots, essentially they never really do, tell you the answers. It's usually the leader of the ship.
Well, I believe if you asked, they would. But most people don't ask. I asked a million questions.
But the smaller guys didn't respond. It was just the leader.
Yeah, they was kind of upset with me, it seemed.
So what was the first experiment or checking up that the leader performed on you or had performed on you?
Well, again, we're skipping if you want me to go to there.
Oh, no. I'd rather stay in chronological order.
So we kind of walked a while, and he was talking to me, telling me what we have to do. And I agreed with it as long as they didn't hurt me or touch me. And he said, okay. So, yeah, it gets crazy. Then they were taking me to this room. They took me to a room, and then it was like a little small area, and they told me to take off my clothes and go lay down with the rest of them. And so I was in the room by myself. I took off all my clothes. And then something opened up, and I went into the room, and there's like 50 to 75 people laying on the ground.
Oh, were they all nude as well?
That was a messed up part. It's like I was the only one to follow directions. Like some of them one guy have one sock on, one guy would have a shirt on. They all had something on, but they weren't nude like me.
Was it all males, or was it mixed males and females?
It was kids, it was males and females, it was all things. And then when I got really upset because I was only naked one, there was clothes everywhere. There was like stuff on the ground. So I reached down, but when I reached down, it was like if I was up to my neck in mud. So it was really hard to bend down, and I grabbed something to cover me, and it was a little kid's shirt. And it wouldn't go around me, so I just covered up my privates and was walking.
Why do you think it felt the way it did when you bent down to grab that article of clothing?
To control us, some kind of atmosphere control. They made the air thick. You know what I mean? It was weird. It was like, so if I try to run, it'd be like running in mud or whatever.
These other humans, and were they all humans from Earth, or were they humans that were product of hybridization?
No, these were all people like me, but they weren't acting like me. They were following directions. They didn't wake up. They were just doing that, just laying down. Then I walked. They were laying. This is a trip. They were laying. It's hard to explain without drawing it or something, but they were laying head to head, like if me and you laid straight, and we were just touching heads. But a row of people like that, and then there'd be a place where you could walk, and there'd be another row or two head to head. And then a space where you could walk, and another row, like it was just rows of people touching head to head, shoulder to shoulder. And then I walked, and then there was an empty spot, and that's where I went. I just laid down next to it.
Did the people seem like they were in some sort of stupor? Were they acting scared, or were they just like in a hypnotic trance? How would you describe them?
They weren't reacting at all to anything.
So they were just
They
quiet,
were,
zombified.
yeah, just laying down. I heard a few people, whatever, crying or whatever, but they weren't conscious and shit. They weren't like looking around. They weren't like sitting up or anything.
Okay, there's a question here. Cassandra GA, did they tell you? And by the way, people, please leave questions in caps. It makes it easier so I know that there's a question as opposed to just comments. This one I found, so I'll read it. Did they tell you how long they've been observing abducting Earthlings? Are they new at the abduction phenomena?
I really doubt it. I didn't ask that question. Again, I didn't ask questions that most people think I would ask. So I wasn't interested in anything but what was going on at the moment, if that makes any sense.
Now, what was the next memory you had?
Okay, that's what you wanted to talk about, the jail pool.
Yes.
Again, something woke me up. It was people screaming. They were panicking. There was yelling. And it's like a funnel. It was like a metal funnel, but not a funnel. You know, it was just like a funnel that was clogged up, filled halfway up with this blackish, greenish gel.
And you're talking big, like a big bathtub funnel, right?
Oh, yes, huge. It was a huge pool. And I was kind of like holding on to the edge. So I was still slipping down. I was like halfway in and halfway out. And I learned if you stay still, I could still hang on a little bit just by my dry palms.
Real quick,
you know what I mean?
Did they tell you to go in it, or did you just?
Yes.
Okay, gotcha.
But they told me it's okay. You can breathe it. You can eat it. And you won't drown in it. I suppose that's how they explained it to me.
The irony too is they told you you could breathe, you could eat, you could shit it, and you could live off of it indefinitely, right?
Yeah, you can. They literally let me know that I could eat it, digest it, and shit it out, and it'll be the same thing that it is.
This kind of reminds me of the story, I believe it was Moses when they were in the desert. I want to say Egypt, but I could be wrong. When they were basically eating manna, Giorgio Tsoukalos now possibly thinks that manna was something similar to this gel, which is able to sustain you regardless of how much you have, because even though you digest it and it comes out, you could re-eat it again, and it's sort of
you won't die in there like of starvation. You won't drown, and it was really interesting to me because I was scared as hell. I wasn't gonna put myself under there. I'm sure I did eventually, but what I did is I kept my hands dry on the edge. Oh, there was this one dude that was like trying to escape. He kept climbing out, and they would hit him with like a green light, and he would slide back down, and he figured out how to climb up. They kept hitting him on a light, so I didn't want to get hit with that. So I slid my arms down. It's like if you went in a swimming pool and you had your hand on the edge on the dry part, and then as you put your hand underwater, you're still touching dry. You know what I mean? So it was like my palms were dry, but when I went under, I kept my nose and my mouth outside of the gel because I didn't trust it. And there were people all in the bottom, rustling around, moving, you know what I mean? And I wasn't trying to do that. And it was like black, but like if you splash it, it turned green. But then when the ripples or whatever the splashing stopped, it would stay black. Like the top was black.
How long would you say you were in this pool type funnel?
I don't know. I ended up blacking out.
And what was the next memory after you woke up from blacking out? Were you, again, when you woke up this time, were you still in that same room or pool or somewhere else?
That's when the medical part happened. That's when I met the next species. But when I was in the pool, I kind of figured people had been in there for years.
Ah, yes, that's another important part I'm glad you mentioned that. What gave you that impression that those people...
The first one was the dude that kept getting out. It took a while to figure that out, however he was doing it. You know, you just didn't get thrown in there and just start automatically coming out because it made the side slippery where you just kept sliding back in. So he figured a way to do that, and he had to spend a lot of time in there.
That's kind of scary if you think about it. If I'm taken by ETs and I'm not returned for years to come because I am stuck in some pool of black liquid that I'm told to eat, breathe, and whatever, I would start to worry if I'm ever going to be brought home, for that matter. Did any of those thoughts cross your mind? I mean, if you realize that some of those people had been in there for years, did you think maybe you're stuck there for years?
Well, I didn't figure that out until I got home, you know, when I started thinking about it. I wasn't right there and going, oh, these guys must have been here for years. But I knew that one guy that kept trying to get out had to be there a while at the time. But I had no imagination that they stayed there for years until later on.
Now, so is the next, let's talk about the medical experiments in this next memory. What was the first thing? Are you on a table now? And also you said it's another being.
I was naked.
What's the other?
I was naked.
Being.
They look like the guys that delivered me, but taller.
Okay,
They look like what typical grays, but I call them the doctors.
Gotcha. And were they wearing anything as well?
Yeah, they weren't wearing black. I believe they was wearing like a flesh-colored kind of whitish silver or something like that. But again, I wasn't focused on that.
Yeah, you were focused on their face, their skin, and what was going on, I would imagine.
Yeah, they started doing things to me. They first thing they did was took my left eyeball out.
Yeah, that's another thing I wanted everyone to hear when I was referring to as one of the most shocking cases. So how did that feel like? And did they tell you they were going to do that?
No, I asked them why they're doing it. It didn't hurt at all. However, they did it. I could see my eyeball being taken out, and then they had like a needle, and they put something in my eye.
Sounds like possibly an implant.
I asked them what it was. They said it was a monitor, so they can monitor me from space.
Wow, literally, it just sounds like they gave you the explanation of why they've been putting implants into people.
Yeah, and the way they explained it to me was like the way they talked to me or communicated was like I was a little 4-year-old kid. They didn't talk to me all scientific. They talked to me like just choppy little sentences. It wasn't like you would talk to an adult. It was like if you talk to a little kid, like time to go to bed or watch TV. It was just real short.
Couple words. Now, because if your eyes have ligaments and attached to, inside your socket, I'm assuming as your eye was out, it's still attached, right? It's just removed to the socket.
It was like a gray cord or something. I can't really describe it, but it was my eyeball is connected to something, a vein, or I don't know what it is. I'm not a doctor or anything like that.
What was the next? Well, first of all, how did they remove it? By hand, by something that was unseen, or was there some sort of device?
I couldn't tell. I don't know how. It wasn't like they pulled it with their fingers. It was something. They have like these machines that think. You know what I mean? It's just how do you explain it? It's like they just tell it what to do and it does it.
I'm going to say this one part and tell me if this sounds familiar. I've heard this from several other abduction cases. Actually, the first time I heard this was a woman who didn't even know she was abducted until I started talking to her and she saw a documentary. This is like early 90s. And she said that on board that a metal, like I guess you want like a hose, came out of the wall, and she said that it reminded her of being like a snake because the cord or whatever you want to call it seemed to have a mind of its own, and literally it was that came out and went in her vagina and got the ova or the eggs to ultimately down the line implant her. So when you talk about machines that know what to do, that exactly the description that she gave me. Did you notice anything like that snake-like metallic?
No, well, I'm a male, so I had a different procedure done to me.
Yeah, I was going to say that's possibly why you didn't see that same piece of technology.
But they did do something like that to me, but my next, and they told me They told me no doctors will remove my eye to get that, to take it out.
And my guess is the reason they said this is because so many implants had been removed by that time, right?
I have no idea. But it was to dissolve after time.
I see. So now what's the next memory?
Well, I remember they told me that they put it in so it can monitor me from space. That's how that's how they told me, like a little kid, how I would understand it, like monitoring you space. I didn't question it. I don't know what they were talking about. And then the next thing they took was like a little tiny piece of skin from my left forearm, the inside of my forearm. It was like so little you couldn't see it. I kept telling them, you didn't get anything. You didn't take anything. And they said, we have enough.
Yeah, if they're looking for DNA, there's plenty in that tiny little scoop. Did you notice after this incident that you had scoop mark in that area?
No. Again, I didn't. When the whole story was over, I didn't remember that part for a long time.
Years.
So I didn't go home and look at my wrist.
Yeah.
Or anything. But the next thing after that was they put like a blanket or a little square towel rag on top of me on my privates. And they took semen from my left testicle. But they just told it what to do, and it was just like, it did it. You know what I mean? They didn't have like scalpels and shit like that. It just did it. That's how I knew these things were thinking. All they had to do was tell her what to do.
Telling it, when you say telling it, I'm assuming telepathically as well, right? Cause
well,
you said it was,
I don't know how they communicate with the equipment.
But either way, it was still silent as far as auditory.
No speaking at all. Again, it's with them. It's a silent. To me, it was a silent world.
Did they say anything to you or show you anything in your mind after they removed sperm?
No. This is the part that really pissed me off. I said, why are you doing this? What's up with this? And they said, so we can make babies in space. Again, that's how they talked to me. It was like a little kid. So that's what they told me.
There's a comment here, and it's a repeat, and I was asked to relay it to you, so I'm going to. This is from Stephen Carney, and he's, I'm just going to read it word for word. He goes, Dr. J, did you see my comment asking to thank this guy for his story and for telling us appreciate it? So I just wanted you to know that.
As long as people don't talk shit to me or try to make fun of me, I don't mind doing it. But if you can only imagine what I went through for people talking about me and calling me weird and whatever, I'm not into UFOs. It just happened, and that's just my story.
And you're someone that if this didn't happen, my guess is you wouldn't even believe it.
Yeah.
And if you had a chance to take this experience away, would you in a heartbeat?
I would never do this again. But retrospect, it taught me about everything, life, death, taught me about everything. So it ended up being an incredible educational thing. So in a way, I'm not glad it happened, but I did get something out of it.
As far as perspective on life and death, or?
Yeah. I ended up, some more stuff happened again. They explained the death thing to me, and that was next. I went through the whole semen thing. I was really pissed off at that, and then I passed out again, and I was just laying on a table. For some reason, I was exhausted, like sleeping exhausted, like tired, and I wasn't unconscious. I was just more sleeping, and they were talking to each other. And I could hear them in my brain, and they were talking about how I'm going to die and what's going to happen to me. And I got really pissed, and I stood up, and I said, fix me. I kept yelling at them to fix me. If you know what's wrong with me, you could fix me. If you could bring me to the moon, you can fix me. And they looked at me like they was like amused that I woke up. And they didn't respond or anything like that. I just got really mad at them.
I would too. It sounds like they knew when you're going to die and of what.
Yes, and they told me that, but I never tell people that because I don't want to make it true.
Yeah, I don't blame you at all. Now, did they explain the death process? Like, what happens after? Are you going to go into an afterlife?
Oh,
Is there?
this is where people call me crazy. They let me experience it. I don't know if they killed me, but I went to where we go. I went to where we go, and they brought me back.
What did
So
it look like? What did it feel like?
it was better than here. I didn't want to come back. You know what I mean? You get to see people you love that you don't even know you love. I don't want to say people because it isn't people. Nobody has flesh or anything like that.
Spirits.
It's called home.
Gotcha.
We go back home.
That's actually very reminiscent to the near-death experience I had. I felt at home, and I loved everybody that was there. And the interesting part was I was interacting with someone that had been dead since the late 80s, and I don't think I even thought about him since he passed away because he really had no particular significance in my life other than being a friend of my father. Regardless, it sounds very similar in that sense, except
Well, my experience was I didn't meet anybody that I knew that had died. Mine was people who were gone generations that still loved me. It's unexplainable. So
ancestors
I
or
was
something like that.
I was loved immediately. I was surrounded and loved by people I didn't even know I loved or loved me or even existed.
When you came back from this experience, did you say anything to them of like, what did you do to
No,
me or anything like that?
it was just comforting. That's why they did it. That's how they answered my questions, by letting me experience it. So I was asking them, fix me, and they basically showed me that death is not a bad thing.
What was the next procedure or memory?
I got to think about this one. Okay, I went to. Oh yeah, I was walking with that tall guy again. I was out of the medical situation. There might be more stuff I'm forgetting about because I haven't told the story in a very long time. But the next recollection I remember was walking with that guy again in some kind of like hallway. I don't know if it's a hallway, but we were walking straight. And they like I say, how they answer your questions, how they answered my questions was showing me. And the first thing I asked was about my semen. I asked him about the babies in space. And as I'm asking, he's taken me and showed me, went into this room with these two little kids. They were like 9, 10, a male and a female. And they were sitting down at something. And as I was asking them about babies in space, he showed me them. And these ones were born in space. And I instantly thought they were like me. They were taken, and they were somewhere where they didn't want to be. Well, when they looked at me, they didn't scream for help. They didn't panic. They just looked at me. So I knew they weren't abducted.
Did they look just like a typical baby, or was their skin
No,
lighter?
no, they was humans. They was born in space.
I see. Now, because they were born in space, I'm guessing they belong to the ETs. They're going to be the ones that raise them.
Yeah, but again, they weren't scared to be there. You know what I mean? I hated at the time being there, but these guys were not even panicking. They weren't asking me for help. They weren't doing nothing. They didn't say nothing. They just pretty much answered my question by showing me babies in space.
Well, I would imagine if they were born there and that's all they knew is home, then they wouldn't be really fearing because they wouldn't have much to compare it to.
Right, and they had a job. They were actually doing something.
What would you say they were doing, or what did you think they were doing?
I don't know. They were sitting at like they were sitting down with their backs towards me. When I came in, they turned around and looked at me. But I don't want to say it was a computer board, but it was like a flat black table. Like, I don't know what they were doing.
Now, what was the next memory?
Let me see. Okay, I'm sure I'm skipping some parts. It's a pretty long story. I asked them about the babies from space. Oh, and in my brain, I'm thinking, how are these guys eating? You know what I mean? And in my brain, first of all, I liked this guy. It was the taller guy. I liked him. But I didn't want to let him know that I thought he was ugly. But he knew what I was thinking, so he knew I thought they were ugly. But he wasn't tripping at all. He wasn't like, he didn't get offended or anything like that. So I started thinking in my brain, how are they feeding this guy? And it was funny because in my brain, I imagined one of the alien guys with a chef hat barbecue. I'm like, how are they feeding them? What do they eat? And as I'm thinking it, he walks me into this room with a big old cow. There was a cow hanging butt in the air,
Mm-hmm.
and head down, and he was dead. And that's when I really panicked because I think, oh shit, this is the end. They're gonna kill me. But this is from what I assumed or what they told me. They grabbed it and they dipped it into some kind of liquid, and they pulled it up, and it was like the inside, like it was cut on the stomach part, like by the butt. It was just kind of like, not mutilated, but it was just dead, and they did something to it. And I believe what they did was took its reproduction organs and stuff like that, and they make their own cows in space too. And they were saying something that's their protein and stuff. That's how they feed them, because I was asking about that.
That's very
Stuff like
interesting. Would you say that is the reason why there are so many cattle mutilations and just cattle in general taken?
I have no idea, but that's just what I saw. And it was weird because, okay, say you get a bathtub, you fill it up, and you dip like something in it, it's going to overflow, correct?
Yes.
This didn't overflow. It just went in there, and it came out, and it was jacked up, and I thought it was going to kill me. So I was really mad.
There's a question here for you. This is from Prince Vegetason. Did you ever smell anything?
Yeah, it stunk.
Like,
especially where all the people were.
That's what I was gonna say. Did it stink because of their sweat, or was there anything else that stunk? Like, did the ETs stink?
No, I didn't trip off that. But when I went into the room with all the people, that stunk, and it was dirty. It was like a dirty area. So I don't know. People were shitting on the ground, pissing everywhere.
Probably all of the above.
It just stunk. Not where I plugged my nose. I just noticed it was bad. It was like a stenchy area.
Here's another one for you. Cassandra GA says, cow, ? I was going to ask if you knew why. I asked that earlier. If they using cow DNA for food for captives.
That's what I took it because I asked that question. How are you feeding? I didn't ask it. I was thinking, how are they feeding these two kids? If they have more, how are they eating? And that's what they showed me. And as far as I know, they can grow vegetation, carrots and stuff like that. That they don't have to abduct a carrot. You know what I mean? They could just grow their own whatever. And vegetables will feed the cows too. So it was just interesting. Everything they do is simple. It's not complicated. And I asked them about that and how they get so smart and stuff like that. And they were saying they're not smarter than us. They're older than us. So
that's interesting.
They're like millions and millions of years old. Us as humans, we have gaps for some reason. The Egyptians and cowboys and cavemen, there's gaps, and we never really survived constantly for millions of years like they have. And they're just older than us. They're no smarter than us.
Cassandra G has another question. They leave most carcasses because they would stink up ship? She's talking about the cows.
That's a good question. You know, I didn't ask about that. And I remember telling him, this is fucked up. I go, what you guys are doing is fucked up. And he says, what's the difference between you and I? And then he let me understand. This is literally what he told me. He goes, what do you think a tiger thinks when he hears thunder in the air? And then he looks up and sees a big metal object flying. And then the next thing he feels is a pain in his hip. And then the next thing is he can't control. All he can do is see. And then humans come out of this big metal object, and then they take semen, they take blood, they take teeth, they take we do. They basically let me know we do the same thing to other animals and species. So what's the difference between them and us?
Ooh, that's a very good point. They're literally throwing it back at humanity.
Right, and they said we are worse because we kill.
That's very
We
true.
will kill others. We will kill other species. So if they're bad, what are we?
I love that answer that they throw it back at you.
Yeah.
Here's let's see
And
more.
I said he was. I go, you're right.
Couple questions here in the chat, and I know you have to go soon, so I'll try to do my best to wrap
I'm
them up.
all right until because I'm supposed to go to dinner, but until my wife opens the door and asks how much longer I'm okay. I don't mind answering questions. Nobody's being rude, or at least you're not reading any of the rude ones.
Yeah, and they're not. That's the best part about them. Okay, so Stargate Traveler wants to know: do they have bathrooms?
I don't know. I don't know. Like, there's a lot of things. Do they have cafeterias? You know what I mean? Where do they go on break? Do they eat? But through my life, I kind of figured out a lot of stuff like that. But I just came up with my own ideas, and from what they kind of told me. And again, if I could do it all over again, I would ask those questions. And I did ask about God, and because it was weird, because most people's gods just doesn't coexist with what they believe. But they just told me one God, one love, one creator. That was their answer to me.
Now, okay, so essentially they do essentially believe in a sentient being.
I don't know. That's just what I asked. I didn't go no further. I don't think they go to church and pray or anything.
Yeah, I would imagine it would be something completely different. Maybe just spiritual within their own thoughts, as opposed to a being, a place, a location.
And that's what I learned from them, is never to question God. Because I don't believe in the religious God. I don't believe in the Bible God.
Gotcha. Let me get a couple here that I'm seeing pile in. This is Dark Hour Paranormal, my good friend and fellow magician. Actually, I can't even call myself a magician. I'm such a novice. He is the pro. Michael asks, are these beings in any way an offshoot of our own evolution, merely on a different branch?
Man, it's a trip how I was told. It's like, it's confusing to me. It's like there are, how do I explain this? I don't want to say that from the future or whatever, but if we don't survive, they don't survive. They won't exist, but they already exist. So they're kind of keeping us, our species alive, I guess. So if we go extinct, they go extinct. So it's like they're kind of keeping us alive so they don't go extinct, which I don't understand.
Well, it does kind of make sense that would be time travelers possibly on a different timeline. Dr. Dan Burrish explained this, but in a weird way.
Here's an example. Say we could do that, and we went back to George Washington days.
Mm-hmm.
And if those humans were to exist, we wouldn't exist. So we would have to make sure they don't get extinct. So even though we still are here, you need help? You okay? And again, I can't explain that part.
Okay, more for you. Cassandra GA, are we the trailer park of solar system?
We're really bad.
Okay.
We're really bad.
Rockstar asks, when you were on the dark side of the moon, could you see outside?
Yeah. Like, what do you mean? Like windows or something?
Yeah. Was it still transparent? And if so...
No. They took me into like a building or something. It was weird. Okay, imagine a skyscraper here.
Okay.
But with no levels, like no second floor, no 80th floor, just the bottom and the top. It was just very high.
That's weird.
Yeah, you couldn't see the top.
It was that tall?
Yeah, it was like almost like a skyscraper, I would suppose.
So,
but not.
Is it safe to say that there is at least an alien base, if not an entire city, on the dark side of the moon?
It's been since the 80s. So hold on one moment. I gotta let somebody in. You got it? Oh, what the heck that is? Give me a second.
No problem. In the meantime, I'm going through a couple of these questions so I can have them ready. I hope you guys are really enjoying this because, like I said, this is an exclusive.
Yeah, and like I said, it was just like tall. It was like the roof was super, super high. I don't know why. Even if the room was like a bedroom, it was just super high,
So,
super tall.
all those people that pool and the medical experiments were done inside the building, but not necessarily inside the craft, right?
Yeah, the craft was my only experience, was just taking me there. Then they took me to some, again, I didn't see a building. I was just automatically in something.
Did you
So
think you were underground at all, or just in a building above ground?
I couldn't tell you. And after a while, I wanted to go with them. I started thinking, man, can they take me where they live? And they told me for them to go the speed to keep being alive, it would take over 20,000 years to get where they're going.
Wow. Okay, that's kind of startling, because if they brought you there in 10 seconds, I'm wondering what would be the difference if you're enveloped in gravity inside of a craft that if you can create gravity, well, then by default, you can create an Einstein-Rosen bridge, a.k.a. a wormhole, which would mean that instead of traveling from point A to B in a straight line, you would bring point B close to you and essentially walk in through one door and come out and be at point B. So that's kind of interesting that they would phrase it that way. And that also adds another element that you could sort of calculate how far they are, that if 250,000 miles took you 10 seconds or so, then we could guess based on 250,000 miles where 20,000 years would take you, and then we could sort of guesstimate which star systems they are from.
Well, you could do that because I'm not good at math. You know what I mean? But I knew it said over 20,000 years to go the speed that I would survive.
Okay, let me get to some more here. I'm going to come out of the order for a quick second so I can give a shout out to Rockstar. Thank you for your super chat, Rockstar. And I have to say, you rock for supporting me. Okay, the next one here is, we asked about the outside. What else did you ask them? That's from Cashmore Turbo.
I asked a lot of stuff, but this is like spur of the moment for me to remember everything. But let me get to the end of the story and we can start answering more questions.
Sure.
Of course, the cow situation, that was the last part. And then I told them they're fucked up for doing this. And they told me if they're messed up, what are we, by the whole tiger thing, how they showed me that. And then the next thing I remember was I laid down in my bed, and as my pillow hit, that's why the little guys were mad, because they only had a certain amount of time, and I was messing things up. I wanted to fight them and doing weird stuff like that. So they were really upset that they only had a minimum amount of time, but they got me back within a second before my alarm went off. As I laid back down, as my head hit the pillow, my alarm went off to go to work.
Wow.
So,
and that's the really interesting thing too, is because you have an element of time travel. If you woke up just around the time, just a few minutes before you normally would have woken up, when the dogs started barking, and it was just before sunrise, and all of a sudden you're taken to the backside of the moon, you have this pool incident, you black out, you wake up, black out, wake up, the cow incident, the medical experience, all that must have taken, I would gather, not just minutes, but hours. And then
I assumed I was up there hours, and I was thinking, if I was up there and fell down and skidded my knee or anything that took any longer than I was up there, my alarm would have went off, and my girl at the time would have woke up with me not there.
That was the next thing I was going to say, and I can't even imagine what she would have thought. Where's my husband or my father of the children?
Yeah.
He's gone, and where did he go? What happened?
And the first thing I told her to do, this is kind of weird or strange, I don't like to be explicit, but I had her check my left testicle because I thought they took it. And she grabbed it or whatever, and it was there. So I only had moments because I only woke up a half hour before work, so I had to go. So I didn't have time to sit there and dwell and figure this shit out. I just got on to work, and then as I left, I forgot about everything except the semen thing. And then after years and years and years, everything came back to me. So I didn't put this together after like 10 years went by, and I finally had it all together.
Is there anything else that you think is relevant that I forgot to ask before I get to some of these questions?
Not at the moment. Like if you want to do another interview later sometime.
Oh, absolutely. I'll never get bored of interviewing you, especially since more comes out. Or
Yeah.
a memory that I forgot to ask you on. Essentially, that's why it's worth it. Okay, let me go
Yeah,
to some of these
and
here.
later when I got back, I was able to see things. Like first thing I did was when I first got back and when I was going to work, they call it eye litter. Signs. Humans have signs for everything. It's how dumb we are. We need to know we can't park there. We need to let us know we have to stop when this light goes on. We need to stay in these lines on the road, because if we didn't, we would go as fast as we want. We would just be out of control. But we're controlled by signs.
Yeah.
We need things to tell us to do things. And that was one of the first things I realized when I got back, was how dumb we are.
I would think that would be a moment of reflection for not just personally, but for all of humanity on a macro level.
Like I couldn't tell you how to get to my mom's house without directions. They don't need any of that. You know what I mean? We need dumb shit to know what corner we're on. We need lines. We need everything. If you just look down the street, and you'll see things that tell you things.
You're absolutely right. We are living in a world where we're guided by nothing but signs, especially if we live in the states that are more blue, if you're in the United States, where they're nanny states, where, you essentially lose all of your self-freedom or control, because you're kind of like a mindless robot, since there's so many rules and laws, like don't cross the road without or you'll get a J light ticket or all that crap.
And the thing about it is we're getting dumber.
Yes.
We aren't getting any smarter without your cell phone. Like, I can't even tell you my wife's phone number.
See, thank you for saying that. I was just going to interject that technology has made us dumber. 25 years ago, I could have every number was memorized, and I'm talking like well over a couple hundred.
Exactly.
I mean, there's only
now we're dumber.
5 or 10, and even back 25 years ago, I wanted to drive somewhere, pull out maps, right? Figure out. Nope. Set it up on GPS.
Well, look at
now.
this. Yeah, like how do I explain this? If I want to know how long a lizard lives, all I got to do is ask Siri or Google. If I want to know what do trees do for the earth, I don't have to think about it or study it or be educated. I just press it in, boom, and then I forget about it. We're not getting smarter. We're dumber. Every year we get dumber.
I agree. I definitely agree, and I'm wondering if that's one of the reasons why there is such a rise in sightings, because of the true fear for humanity. Now, what's your personal opinion on why the last year and a half have been an exceptional amount of sightings?
Well, first of all, I think we're stupid for thinking they're only here for us. Another thing they kind of let me know is this is a transplant planet. We have species here that shouldn't exist. We have shrimp that live in 600-degree water. We have octopus that can turn into a rock, basically. We have things that are brought here. Okay, if there's a species on another planet that needs to live in ice cold situations, we have that for them. If we have a creature that needs to live underground, we have that for them. If we have creatures that need to live 5 miles on the bottom of the underwater, we have that place for them. Our planet is like 1 million planets in one. So if they have creatures that can only live in water, we have a place for them. If we have a place that needs to be on a certain elevation, we have places for them. It's insects, you know what I mean? If we need things that can only eat algae, we have that for them. This planet is a transplant planet.
Yeah, it's got so many different types of life, and I'm sure you might have even heard that recently some scientists believe that even octopus are alien. They don't belong on
Probably
Earth.
everything. You know what I mean? And I also believe, well, they were letting me know that we were taken from where we were originally from, like some galaxies or universes. Every planet is inhabited by stuff. So they put us here so we can't hurt no other planets. Like we can't, and we can't travel to Mars and destroy their culture or whatever. We can't go to Jupiter and destroy their thing. They put us here so we can't harm anything, but we are causing damage to other species that are here. So we're not doing too well.
Whitley Strieber was the first to really interject this theory. George Knapp recently said this again. Preston Dennett confirms that he also believes this, that after crashes, the reason why ETs are not picking up their crashed craft or technology is because they're sort of leaving it here for us to get a jump start on our civilization to basically figure things out in a faster rate. Do you think that's true?
Not from what I was told or let known. The ones that do crash are independent. They're like just travelers.
I see.
They're not scientists. They're not here to do anything. They were on their own and fucked up. You know what I mean? That was their situation, so they're not going to come and rescue us. We won't. They say we won't believe it anyway.
I see. Okay, here. Do you want to take some questions?
Yeah, I got time.
Okay. I don't know what this means, and if hopefully she responded, or if it's a he. Lee Conroy asks, do you believe in the SSP, if you know what that is?
Never heard of it.
Okay, well, hopefully Lee will tell me what it... Oh, duh! Secret Space Program. Do you believe in the Secret Space Program?
Such as what? Like what?
Let's see here what Lee's saying. Secret Space Program, or is it Space Force?
Sort of like the government knows what's going on but won't tell us.
And is using technology that has been able to have humans on planets that are typical, like SpaceX technology or space shuttle would have never been able to accomplish.
No, we're cavemen. We're cavemen today. Even our highest technology is millions of years behind them.
Cashmore Turbo wants to know, what did the leader's eyes look like?
They weren't big like the other guy. He was more, how do I say this? He didn't scare me as much as the other guys by. He was ugly as hell, but he was his friendliness kind of made me overlook his how he made me feel. I was really comfortable with him.
Let's see. Coral on. Did the guests see a lot of little children in that large building?
There was everybody, every race, every size, everything. Like there weren't puppies laying there, nothing. It was just all humans and stuff. So I saw it was just everybody, and none of them followed directions. I was the only naked one. It really pissed me off.
Well, hopefully they'll reward you down the line for that.
Yes.
Cassandra GA asks, do you know if they know of inner Earth cities or other aliens living in our planet or oceans?
I don't know. The only thing I know is if they can go in space, they sure in hell can go in water. You know what I mean? So I don't doubt. And they're not here just for us.
And 2/3 of our planet is covered in water. What better place to hide than underwater?
To me, if a meteor came down and hit dry land, that's a miracle compared to how much water there is. You know what I mean? So, and there was another thing before I lose my train of thought is back in the Egyptian days, they could land and live with us. You know, that's the whole pyramid there. I have my theory on the pyramids, on how they moved everything. But they could literally live with us, and then people in Germany or Japan would have no idea that they're there. And like now, if they landed in Egypt or Tokyo, we would know instantly in America that it just happened.
It would show up on TikTok or Instagram instantly.
Oh, easily, instantly, we would know. Here, they could live generations with, you know what I mean, with them, and teach them things. And I could go on the theory of how they move the stones and
Yeah.
stuff.
Well, what is your theory on the pyramids and the
Okay,
stones?
here I can only do it by examples. Okay, say you put a quarter on a table,
Okay.
and you had an ant try to move that. You can't do that. But if you made a vibration and it started vibrating, you could push that quarter with one finger if you were that size of that ant. You could easily just move it by vibrating. So it wasn't a thing of, what's it called?
So you're talking frequency of sound frequency, tones.
Yeah, sound. If they made a sound that would shake a stone or something, which made it easier to move, stuff like that. Like just focus on, if they made a boulder shake, and I could push that myself. So it wasn't like it was difficult. Everything they do is easy, simple.
This
Like
totally.
we're looking for technology. We're looking for cranes. We're looking for diesels, trucks, moving stuff. It wasn't like that. And again, they can do that back in those days without the world knowing.
And that, again, like you said, we're looking for all these, what we would expect to use, which would be technology like cranes. And it sounds like
Right.
what they're using is far more simpler and is actually in line with what a lot of people are saying and have been saying, that it is sound and vibration that allows these essentially rocks to levitate or to be moved with ease, essentially.
With little effort.
Yeah.
Little effort. You know, what we can't, like, okay, imagine this. Say we got, not extinct, but nothing really, not many. We weren't the dominant species of this planet. And millions of years, they see a skyscraper. Like, how the hell did they build this? How the hell did they make glass? How the hell, you know what I mean? It would be baffling to them. But that's going millions of years ahead. You know what I mean? So it's probably the same thing with us. Like, we don't have no clue. Well, some people do, but simple is how they do it. Same with simple, how they fly. Simple, how they do my eye thing. The gel pool is simple. You know, it was nothing crazy. I mean, in retrospect, you know, I mean, it's not very difficult if you're them.
Here's a question that I've never asked you, but it's an interesting question. Prince Vegetason, were you hungry when you got back to Earth, and what was the first thing you ate, if you remember?
I just ate lunch at work. You know what I mean? Nothing. It was nothing to me. It was just like a normal night. You know what I mean? Except when I was there, I was really exhausted. And I thought about it all day at work. I was like, what the hell just happened? You know what I mean? But I had to work. I had to go do what I did. So I really didn't focus too much on it. And plus, the only thing I remember at that time was the semen part. And then it took me years to remember. And I remember I was at my house one time. We were having a barbecue. And what brought everything back was I lived right around the corner from a store, and I told my cousin, let's go to the store. So I started hopping in my car. He goes, what are you doing? You live right around the corner. Let's walk. So as I was walking, the dog started barking again, and that brought everything back. These are the same dogs that woke me up when I was walking down this street. So that's what kind of started opening my memories up.
This next question is sort of a play on something asked earlier, but it's a different person. So if you don't know the answer, if you want to speculate, by all means. This is Stargate Traveler asking, do some of them live underwater?
Again, I didn't experience that. And if I start answering stuff like that, people are going to say I'm lying and stuff like that. I'd rather not answer something I don't know. But if they could do what they did, I'm pretty sure they could live underground. They could do whatever. But I also think I really don't want to get into it because I'm just thinking and guessing.
Yeah. Cashmore Turbo asks, did they tell you what we must do spiritually as a species?
Live, love, and be loved.
You know what? I couldn't have agreed more that that applies, not just what I would think aliens would want us to do, but what we should be doing in general. Love. That's always been the answer.
And one thing they were letting us know about humans is we are fascinated with death. We worry about death. Live. No one makes it out alive. Just live and deal with what you're dealt with. No, some people will spend their entire life focused on death or God. God just is. God isn't. My God didn't put us here to worship him.
You know
what I mean?
We all have an expiration date, so that's a very true words that we can't sit here and worry about our death all the time. That's actually what we talked about yesterday for quite some time. If anyone here was present
right.
during
I believe you're wasting your life if all you're worried about is what happens when you die. And fortunately, I got to experience that, so I don't worry about that. I do worry about dying, but I don't worry about death.
Yeah.
And from what they told me, how I die and all that stuff, I'm kind of messed up mentally knowing, but I can't worry about that.
Austin Peterson wants to know do human species originate from the constellation Lyra? Again, if you don't know, you don't know.
No, but I know we aren't from here. We were transplanted here. I believe we came from a galaxy or a universe. I don't know what it's called. People always call me on that. Oh, we don't live in a galaxy. We live in a universe. But we come from a place where if there's 30 planets in the solar system, every one is inhabited. But they brought us here to where we're the only ones of our knowledge that, that is alive.
Cashmore Human wants to know did the leader give his name?
Oh, no, I don't know if they have names. I don't know if you really need a name up there. That's a human thing.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say, I would think not.
I don't think tigers call their baby cub Brian. Or monkeys call they just, it's a mental thing. They know who's who. You know what I mean?
Now, we have caught up on the questions. If something else pops up last minute, I'll let you know. Before I do end, there's a couple things I want to say, and of course I want to thank you and say a couple things to you as soon as I end this stream. Is there anything else of the story that you want to tell today, or you want to get ready to wrap?
Just quit worrying about shit. You know what I mean? Don't worry about how we got here. Don't worry about where we're going, because some of us don't even have tomorrow. And if you're gonna be worried about shit that doesn't matter, you're wasting your life, and that's all we have is our life. So I only focus on now, and that's another thing. There's never going to be a tomorrow. There was never yesterday. There was never a 1968. Okay. Yeah. But give me 10 minutes. And I said there'll never be a 2030. It's only going to be now. There will never be no other time but now.
The reason you're saying that is it because we humans put time, we use time in that sense?
Yeah, time is for humans just to document history.
That's exactly the point I was getting to.
Dolphins ain't tripping off 2 weeks ago.
You're right. They're focusing on now.
Yeah, that's all they do is they got to eat now. Chimpanzees, or bugs and stuff, they're not worried about what's going to happen in an hour. They just deal with now, and that's what I do.
Here's one for you. What are your own thoughts about hybrid humanoid interspecies extraterrestrials?
I don't even know what that is.
Let's see. Hybrid humanoid Okay, basically hybrids. What's your species on two different types of ETs that hybridize into one?
I don't know. I'm not that smart. I don't even know what that is.
Well, with that being said, let me say a couple things. First of all, if you're not subscribed, please take the time to do so and hit the notifications. Otherwise, you will not know what's going on. Please do share this video. Hit the thumbs up. All those to help my analytics a ton to keep these videos suggested so they're not buried in YouTube. I have to say this every time now because people don't do it. Also, once the stream is over, please leave a comment. It doesn't matter if it is literally a one letter. helps me a lot. And of course, Super Chat not only helps analytics, it helps directly to the support. So please take care of all of that. And remember also, the website is going to be the backup in case I get deplatformed, like I did off Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. I imagine at some point more and more is going to be deplatformed and demonetized. More than half the videos on this channel are demonetized. Some of them have been completely removed because of YouTube new standards. So the website is going to be the backup.
And if anybody has any other questions, I do have a Facebook on. It's facebook.com UFO abductee, all one word. And the story that I had on YouTube is in my photos, but the movie part. So if you want to look at that, but I do beg you not to copy and post it and put it nowhere. That's just, if that does happen, I'll remove them. But if you want to watch it in case I missed something, I do have extra. I have a life after life video. I have all kinds of different things. And if you have any other questions, but I do have to add you. So if you're interested in that, like I said, it's UFO abductee, and I don't go by Ricky G. So when you do post this video, please don't put that. Just put UFO abductee.
And I'll make sure I put that in the description. That way people can just hit that link and follow you there.
Because just as many positive people like these people here, whatever we're in, YouTube or whatever, I have tons more people that hate me because it doesn't go with their religions. It doesn't go with their beliefs in UFOs. So they really, I've had many death threats, all kinds of stuff like that. And I used to go to like LA and do shit with like Travis and Jim Sparks and stuff like that, but I had a guy flip over a table on me one time.
Oh, jeez.
Just tripping out. So that's kind of why I'm not out there like that.
Well, hopefully things are different now, because all the ridicule I face for talking about this. I'm not an experiencer. I've seen 2 UFOs in 84, 85, and 90. I don't even want to say 2012 or 2012. I don't know what that was. The point is just talking about this has been a ridicule factor. So much so I had to worry about I had to change a letter in my last name when I first got out of law school because I didn't want to lose clients. So I would imagine things are different now with things being a little more open. Go ahead.
I've met some of the greatest people ever. Celebrities, reach out, a bunch of people, but I've also met the worst of the worst.
Well,
so
hopefully those that are the worst of the worst, and I know I've had some of those skeptics on the shows that just berate and belittle. It's kind of fun when I put them in debates like that Robert Schaefer, Stanton Friedman debate, which I'll probably re-upload. It's buried on Third Phase of Moon right now because that's where I originally held it. But people should probably want to hear it because it is kind of fun hearing a skeptic and a ufologist go at it. So I know
none of them can prove me wrong.
Yep,
none of them.
That's right. And
that's what pisses them off the most.
I would imagine so, especially people like, well, he's now passed away, but Philip Glass, Michael Shermer, and Robert Schaefer. Now, so I did say what I need to say. Like I said, my website will be the backup, folks, against drjradiolive.com, drjradiolive.com. Soon archives will be available there in case things are removed from here. So again, please share, do everything like I said, subscribe and like. And real quick, you already mentioned where people can find you, so I'm going to leave you with a final statement. If you have anything final to say to people, what would it be?
What they told me: live, love, be loved. One God, one love, one Creator. And I'd like to thank everybody for being kind to me.
Well said, everybody here. I will catch